Just hold a minute for me, please. Good, I'm recording. Good. Greetings to all those who are now looking. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey on the Dr. Matthews-Bey Uncensored this afternoon. This evening, as a matter of fact, we have three persons who I want to introduce you to. They're all in the Corporate Republic of Guyana, and this is a platform in which we discuss the benefits of Aboriginal people and wanting to represent them on not only on a local level but an international level, and giving them some hope and understanding that there are persons like us who are part of this roundtable this afternoon would want to discuss further pertaining to bringing them out of a strategy, or bringing them out of bringing them out of a dilemma that they will be in, especially here in the Corporation of Guyana. So before I start with this wonderful roundtable, let me give you my 30 seconds for those who know my 30 seconds video, and we will get right back to you. So my 30 seconds video will start now. Yes, we're back, and thank you very much for your time. For this afternoon, for those who know me on this platform, once again, my name is Dr. Matthews-Bey. My specialty is Aboriginal Studies and Artifacts and Etymology. This afternoon, this evening on this particular platform, I have Chief Dr. Ezeudu Samson from the Atiki Kingdom. He is an ambassador for the entire Africa because he represents the royals from the entire African continent. And also we have Dr. Rudy Dayan, a member of the 1823 Bicentennial East Coast Revolution Committee. He gave me, as I collected this information from him, but I'm sure that he didn't mention the other, which he's also a professor and a doctor in Egyptology, if I'm correct. Dr. Dayan, you may correct me. That's the last information I got from you when we first met. And we also have his wonderful wife, Queen Mother. Hello, sorry, go ahead. I didn't get to hear you. Okay. And yes, and we also have his wonderful wife, Queen Mother, Ati. Can you pronounce the name for me, please? Sorry.
Atiang.
Atiang.
Queen Mother Atiang.
Who is also a member of the Royals, Chief Samson. She's also president of the Ghana Day Association, and she's also president of the 1823 East Coast Revolution Committee. Welcome to you all. Welcome. This evening, we're going to start with Dr. Rudy Dayan, who will introduce himself, and he will also be able to add to this discussion this afternoon as we will start. Thank you very much, Doctor. Welcome to the Dr. Matthews-Bey Unfiltered. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much for having me on your program. I must make a little correction. It's not Egyptologists. In fact, in respect to Africa, Africans, if there's anything African spirituality, but otherwise African history, that is where I am love to be focused on. But if there's any, in terms of certification, it would be African spirituality.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that correction. Thank you very much for that correction, Doctor. So you can continue.
Oh, yes. First of all, again, I must thank you for having me on the program. And I must say to everyone who is looking onto this program, I'm pleased to have to be in your midst. And I hope that today we'll learn from each other, and we'll take what we learn into the community, because it's very important that whatever we learn, we should share. Today, I'd like to start off. Remember, we are here, not any particular part of the program. So the whole African interest is our playing field. Let us put it that way. So first of all, I'd like to say that with me, in terms of Africa or Africans in the diaspora, my focus is to change the way we identify ourselves. I think, first of all, if we want to be acknowledged for what we are, we have to present ourselves correctly. So I deal with terms. I'm very focused on the terms that identify us. So today, in order to set off the whole discussion, the whole dialogue, or how we want to put it, I want to say we must identify ourselves correctly, and that the main thing that misidentify us is the word slave. We were never slaves. So I'd like us to start, all of us, to be clear on that. And if we're not clear, let us try to trash it out. First of all, I will define what a slave is. You may not find it if you're in university, it's not their interest to define slave for you, because they say a slave is a black man who was in a certain situation. No. Every European society on this planet, that is since in antiquity, had slaves, started with slaves. That's the social relations in every European society was a slave relationship. And what it meant was, slavery was never a crime against humanity. That's what they want you to believe, because they want to put us in an inferior position. Now, in terms of slavery, a person who had no employment, a person who needed somewhere to go, needed a master. So the center of that particular slave relationship is a master. So in the old days, in the days of antiquity, or even in the not so far off days, someone will seek out a master. They'll go to the master and say, listen, I will work for you. I will serve you. You'll be my master. If you give me food, because I want food, clothing, shelter, and protection. You will not abuse me. If you abuse me, the society will come down on you. But yet they were abusing that system like any system. So everyone should remember this. To be a slave, you had to go to someone and say, I need food, clothing, shelter, protection. Nowhere on that system that they call slavery, where Africans were concerned, no African from Africa went to anyone and said, please give me food, clothing, shelter, and protection. In fact, if anyone should tell you that, no, that was not so, Africans did, you say to them, they'll tell me, why is it that every African European social relations in the Americas was one of antagonism? It was antagonism. That means I don't want to be with you. I don't want food from you. I don't want clothing from you. I don't want shelter from you. What you're doing, you're having me imprisoned. And that's how Africans should be defined. Africans in the Americas were kept in prison. And what is important, and no university or any book on these social relations between Africans and Europeans, which they call slave relations, will tell you that, look, first of all, it was antagonistic. First of all, if the European did not keep their eyes and keep someone looking after your foreparents would have gone. Therefore, your foreparents were prisoners, and they're being kept in check. They're being kept in those prisons, which they call plantations. Either in Guyana's situation, they kept them by Amerindians, the people they call native people. The Amerindians were hired. It's very important you understand that. The Amerindians were hired by the prison owners, the people who control the prison, to be wardens and bounty hunters. That is, when your foreparents or my foreparents or our foreparents escaped from the prisons, they were told to be brought back by the Amerindian, dead or alive. That's very important we understand that.
I think we lost
were brought back.
Audio there from
Hello? 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 Are we connected?
Yes, we are reconnected.
I was at a
Sorry
point.
about that.
I was explaining. Sorry, my brother. I was explaining that Africans, our foreparents, were brought back to the prisons that were called plantations, which were the first private prison industrial complex on this planet. Today, they're making a lot of noise about private prisons. Private prisons were introduced into the world for you, for us, for our foreparents. You got to understand that. It's very important. Anyway, they were brought back by the Amerindians, dead or alive. And what happened? The Amerindians were told, look, if you brought back some body parts that we could identify with as belonging to that particular person, then you'll be paid. So you see the situation with us. We are never slaves. Nowhere on this planet that has ever happened except for Africans. So our situation is very, very special. And why we have to stress that today, our people are going around the world begging for reparations for slavery. There's no such thing. And I'll tell you why that. I'll tell you up front. Although I probably mention this later, but I'll tell you why that should never be so. Our so-called intellectuals and representatives, they have no right to go to anyone asking for reparation for slavery because we were never slaves. But I'll tell you what will happen. I'll tell you what is the most dangerous thing, and you're getting this up front. You won't see it in any book. You'll see it in part of my papers. This is what. In this world, India, for example, had slavery from antiquity. Then slavery petted out. Then about 800 years ago, the Muslims came into India and enslaved India, the whole of India. All right? So India became a slave nation. This slavery lasted until 1843, when you had the Indian Emancipation Slave Act. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because, listen carefully. The amount of people they call slaves in Guyana and the Caribbean were 800,000. I want that number is very important. 800,000. The people they had in India that were slaves, the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka, there were millions. Now, if we go around, they're going to set us up. In fact, as they always set us up. And if I have time, I'll tell you all the times they set us up. Think about it. If we go to say that we want reparations for the 800,000 slaves, then the Indians will wake up and join us and say, hey, wait a minute, this is discrimination. We are millions of slaves and nobody ever thought about us. And I tell you why that is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. In 1833, when they had the Emancipation Act there, relations to the Africans in Ghana and the Caribbean, they did not. Now remember, the Africans in Guyana and the Africans in the Caribbean were under the British rule. At the same time, the Indians were under the British rule. But yet, when they passed the 1833 Emancipation Act, the act said they freed all slaves under the British rule. And tell you why that happened too quickly. They were confused. Why they said that? They were confused because our foreparents, your foreparents,
I think
defeated
we kind of lost some kind of visual. And we're trying to get him back at the moment.
Right. You want me to continue
Samson,
speaking?
if you can hear me, I would appreciate if you can join in at the time.
Yes, I will tell you more of this later. I will continue my focus on slavery later, but I let others come in, and so we'll continue later.
All right, we're waiting for him to get back. So he's trying to.
All right, again.
Are you hearing me? Yes. Okay. Well, what will happen to those who are now joining us back again? We have some interruptions, but doesn't matter because, we'll edit it and we'll be able to take out certain parts that are interrupted. So as we were listening to Dr. Diane emphasize basically upon the slave trade, we would like to have him recontinue to where we left off, and maybe we can have 3 minutes in that portion, and we can invite Dr. Sampson, Ezedou Sampson, to give us his 10 minutes. So, Dr. Diane, can you continue?
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much. What I will do at this point, I would like to break on the subject, and I'll continue to the point. Remember, I'm at the point when I was trying to show that if we discuss reparation on slavery, we will lose, we will be the loser in the long run, because the Indians were the majority in terms of slavery, and they were not even considered, and they were British subject. The Indians say, listen, how come you didn't consider me? And I was majority. There were only 800,000. We were millions. You discriminated against me. We shall push you aside so that we can get ours. In fact, when I continue at another time, I'll show how the affirmative action we lost for the same thing. The civil rights movement was the same thing. We started it, and people push us aside. But we'll continue. Thank you for allowing me to come so far or explain the whole system so far.
No problem. But you know what? Instead of inviting Chief, let me save you for last and invite Queen Mother, because I want to make sure she have the opportunity to give us her 10 minutes. Thank you very much. And we have Chief Sampson at the end, not as the last person in the program, but the last in your introduction, also on what you do as part of the ambassadorialship of the Royals. So we have Queen Mother. Welcome to you this afternoon, ma'am. and go right ahead. Don't let me waste your time.
Bayete, and I would like to say how wonderful it is to be with you on the program. I'd like to say that I'm very happy to be entering into other people's homes, wherever they're watching from. To the female energy out there, I want to say Ma'at, and to the male energy, I say Hotep. Well, my take is I was listening to Dr. Gayan, and what I felt that he did not make clear is that our reparations claim, and again, I was one of the commissioners on the Guyana Reparation Committee here, but what he did not make clear is that reparation should be for us, even though they call it because of the transatlantic slavery. I think what we should make clear is that we are seeking reparations for the brutality and for all the things that was done to us, because never before, never on planet Earth, the treatment that we've had has never occurred for anyone else anywhere. So our cry should be for the things that were done to us, those crimes against humanity, you know, forcing us as indigenous people of Africa into another area and, you know, keeping us in prisons, brutalizing us, raping, killing. I mean, we can go on and on. So those are the things that we should be fighting for. But the danger is with the word slavery. However, I would like to touch upon this thing about our history, because I think that is the focus. African history is extremely important. I mean, any history is important. But what has happened to us is that our story has been told by so many people other than us, and it is always distorted. It's never told in the light that it should be. It doesn't work for us. It is their story, therefore it comes from their perspective. And I think it's very dangerous, because if you ask the majority of young persons anything about their history, they can't tell you. The only thing they can tell you is, we were told that we were slaves. We were told that we were this, but they don't know. They have no idea of their inception. They have no idea that they were the people who gave civilization to the world. They have no idea of the struggles of their ancestors who were so great in building the pyramids, in giving us our mathematical system, in you know, giving us medicine and all the things that you can think of on this planet Earth, because we were the first people. And no one teaches our children that. And even here at home, no one is telling them about the struggles of our foreparents. That is why this bicentennial is so important, because it is because of the struggles of the foreparents here in Guyana that we are able to sit here today and have this conversation. They are the people that set the inroads. They're the ones that created everything that we have here, because our foreparents were the ones that built the infrastructure of this country. They're the ones that socialized this coastline. And what has happened is that because, as Dr. Gayan was saying as I was listening, because of the fact that all they wanted was their freedom, because they were a captive set of people. And let me stop saying they and say we, because we are linked to our foreparents. I have my mother's flesh. She had her mother's flesh, and it goes on and on. So I am the foreparent. And therefore, we were here and we resisted the fact that we were brutalized, captured. Every opportunity we got, as was stated, we ran away. And because of this, we had a lot of revolutions, what they would like to call insurrections, whatever word you want to use. But we revolted. And one of the first large ones we had was 1763. And then we came down to 1823. We had several, and we never stopped. No matter what they did, it continued. It continued all the way through to the 1823. Yes. And I think that is that revolution, which was the largest of its kind at the time in the Americas. It involved over 55 prison industrial complexes, which they call plantations. And approximately 10,000 of our foreparents participated in that. So it goes to show you that we were very, very rebellious. We never accepted. And all we wanted was the freedom. Now, if you do not teach the young people about their history, about the history of this country, we will never understand where we're going with this. Because look, if we have in this society, we are currently divided along racial lines, whether we want to accept it or not. Now, if the other ethnicities do not know my history, and if I don't know theirs, how can we respect each other? How can we work together? So it is important that our history be taught, that it be understood, and that the history on all sides, everybody should understand their beginning, because like we like to say in Ghana, if you don't know, you have to be like the Sankofa bird. You have to look back to gain wisdom in order to go forward. And as Marcus Garvey said,
as we
a people without a culture is like a tree
Queen Mother
without roots.
I am trying to,
yes.
Queen Mother Atian, I am trying to make sure that
it's the we've lost volume, we've lost connection.
there is always this in this corporation, there's always this in and out. Sorry about that, Queen Mother Atian. Go ahead, right from where you left off.
That's fine. I was just saying that until we teach our history correctly, the right stories, we will never be able to work together, respect and appreciate each other. You know, to the listeners, when the working group of experts were here in Guyana, I was privileged to have a one-to-one with that group. And one of the things that they were so amazed at is when I told them that history was not taught in the schools in Guyana. They could not believe it. And as a group representing Africans, because they were the working group of Africans, they could not understand that our history was not taught in the schools. And that was one of the recommendations they made. And it has never materialized to this day. So I feel that the onus is on us as adults, as parents, as intellectuals, whatever, you know, titles or whatever statuses we may have. It is our duty to go out there and educate.
I know that
and let our children let them know their story, their history
in our conversations, and to make sure that they Yes, you hearing me, Queen Mother? Are you
No,
hearing me?
I'm only now hearing you.
Oh,
We lost
yeah,
connections. We
we
lost
as we were
connections.
rudely
So
interrupted.
I was just saying that I was just saying that it is very, very important in this society that we understand and that our young people know where they came from. They understand, they must
Mhm.
understand the struggles, they must understand what has brought them to this point. And the same for other
Okay.
ethnicities. I mean, right now
Yes.
we go out and yes, we celebrate each other's, emancipation, Pagua, whatever, whatever.
Patient and
But
all these things.
that's very superficial for maybe a day or so. What we're not doing is that we're not educating each other. And I am very, very, I'm a stickler for facts. And I feel very upset when I see that even in the textbooks in the schools, they're miseducating and misleading the young people, because we still have in our
Okay.
textbooks today where our children are being taught that the Indians were the first rice planters in Guyana, which is utter nonsense, because who did the rice
Sense, of
before
course.
1838? I mean, it's nonsense, but yet it is allowed to continue.
It's, and they didn't came
So these are,
and they didn't
pardon?
come here in that particular time. They weren't here in 1838. They started coming here in 1845. The first ship landed here in 1845. So when they came, they already met a revised agriculture system that was being done by us. So I comprehend what you're saying, and I must compliment you
Yes, and
your knowledge on it.
yes. So, I mean, these are some of the things that I find that are so disturbing. And what I find really, really
Yes.
disturbing is that our teachers are in the classroom teaching this. So if the teachers are perpetuating a lie, then what do they expect of our children? And let me leave you with
Of
one
course.
last thing, because I know Chief Asudu is
Yes.
waiting to come on. Recently, we've had a lot of problems. And one of the things that is disturbing is that there's some UG students. And I was talking to one of them who happens to be a very shrewd, young person. And the issue of Mahatma Gandhi came up. And the reason this came up is because that there was a suggestion or a proposal put forward by the Indian High Commissioner to have the Middle Street and the Promenade Garden named after Mahatma Gandhi. And we at the 1823 East Coast, Revolution Committee, we objected because that Promenade Garden was the burial site for our foreparents, as well as the other part of the parade ground, because the parade ground covers from Newmarket all the way to Kwamina. And so we were like, how could you even consider this? I mean, that ground is holy ground. Our foreparents' heads were placed on staves all along that ground after they had been executed on that ground, on those grounds, right? So we were like, how could you want to do something like that when you know that this man was an outright racist? He saw Africans in his own writing as 1 degree above animals. He was the one that instituted in South Africa the division in the post
The
office
apartheid.
for there to be a separate line, yes, for the Africans whose country it was to go into that post office. He felt that they should not be in the same line as the Indians. And
With them.
so, these are and all the other racial things that he said. But you know what? This individual was told, as well as other students who brought it up. Oh, he was a good man. This is what the lecturer is telling them. So what is going on with our history and our education system? If you
I think research is the best thing. Research is the best thing for them to do.
Precisely. And this is where we were able to come, because of the research that was done by Professor Gabon and others that showed. And not to forget, I must not forget the other.
Let's use that.
Indian,
let's use that extra time. Let's use that extra time that we will have. So let me bring on Chief Esudu Sampson. We have some extra time, so I want to give him that 10 minutes so we can engage ourselves in that extra time. Chief Sampson, are you hearing me?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Matthew.
Go right ahead. Introduce yourself. Let us know exactly who you, where you're from, and we can get this ball rolling. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, viewers, listeners, and everybody out there who has taken passion to take this program as one of the benefits to the future, for the future generation. I appreciate the Queen Mother's presentation and Dr. Gayan's presentation. That was so informative that it gives us some enlightenment on what happened and how we are based on their presentation. So I would like to start from, say, the history. So Queen Mother has made a presentation on the history. Based on the history of Africa, Africans, is that, we have the biblical history that has guided us, our origin, and the others presented a lot of scripts about the origin of humanity and whom we are, and that is the basis, and that is where we need to have an understanding as to why we are now and where we want to be. So our history is focused at being started from Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, Somalia, those North African countries. That is where we all have been originated. And our movement was based on the forces. One, trade. The people that were living along the coastal areas were mostly influenced in their migration by the forces of trade, where they were trading on the minerals like gold and so on with the Arabs, who used to come and buy from the coastal areas. And then the people who lived inland, who were following River Nile, because River Nile runs from north, that is far Egypt currently, downwards to Lake Victoria, which is in Uganda, that is in the Central Africa. So a majority of those persons who are called the Nilo-Hamites followed the River Nile. That's why they were called the Nilo-Hamites. They were named after the name of the river. So the Nilo-Hamites were more pastoralists who were looking after cattle and doing a little farming along the banks of the river, because along in the north is more of a desert, semi-desert. So there was no pasture. So that's why a majority of persons came down from north following River Nile, migrated slowly. That is years, generations ago, decades. So those ones who were following the coastal areas were called the Bantu. So those were the only two ethnic groups, according to history, that forms the entire Africa. So the influence from those forces was added by the war after the Arabs discovered that there were a lot of minerals in Africa, and then they started migrating to North Africa. So when they came to North Africa, they forced all the Africans, the native Africans from the north, forcing them to migrate outward. And that is why today you see most of the North African countries are dominant of Arabs. Morocco, Libya, Egypt, and Ethiopia was not forced out because they resisted those forces. Why? Because of the unity they had. So when that event took place, the Europeans now came in. They were also looking for minerals. So after discovering that the Africans were strong, because getting the minerals from inland, it was difficult for them because they were not accustomed to those inland movements, walking. There were no planes, there were no roads, there were no nothing. So it was only Africans who knew the jungle, who knew inside of them. So the Arabs took the advantage by getting and that is the silent history which has not been so much popularized. The Arabs played a big role in influencing trade. So they were the ones who were the first ones who were more attached to Africans than the Europeans. So when they discovered that Africans could move, they could walk for a distance and so on, so they lured them to bring the gold or minerals to the coastal area where the Europeans were. And within that is what made the Europeans to get influence, that these guys are very strong. So they said, okay, I think these ones can contribute to our agricultural production here. So that is where trade started. Now, the other thing that has always been bothering us as Africans from the continent is that how people who were brought out from the continent, how they brainwashed our ancestors at that time to tell them that Africans no longer love you, and they don't like you, and they don't want you. So now, in generations that have passed, the same thing has remained to the children, grandchildren, up to today. Because as you interact, you will find that there's because at a certain point we encounter people saying, "No, you people are the ones who sold us." So those challenges,
yes, I comprehend you,
have always continued, making history so distorted that it is not bringing us together, but it is dividing us.
Dividing us, yes.
Because once you remain thinking that I am the one who sold you, you will always have that grudge and feel like you don't want to unite with me because I might again sell you. So the purpose of that was that the persons who were brought out should not think of going back. That was the main purpose of having that brainwash.
Yeah.
So recently, after we had a pushback in relation to that, in terms of having that kind of reunion, there was an interest to bring the royals to explain such history to the descendants out here. So
okay,
I started having discussions with the royals from Africa in 2018. That is when we started having discussions of them coming out to explain, because they still have that fear, that trauma of colonization, the pressure that they faced. Because Africans in their tradition, humans are the most precious anything that they can ever talk about. So they would never say, okay, I want to sell this one because I want to get some money. No. So what happened is, when the Arabs forced them, there was those forces that went all around until there were wars and so on. So that is how some people were used in order to capture others. This was outside the interest of Africans. There was nobody who was willing to do this. It was forces that came around. So now, when the royals were planning to come, it was supposed to be in 2020. It was unfortunate that COVID came in and shut off everything. However, it still came to pass that the royals were able to come out. The representation of royals were able to come out amidst the COVID. So when they came to Guyana in last year, 2022, in August, they managed to join the emancipation celebrations. And another team was in Antigua. The same time when they were here, they were in Antigua. Another team was supposed to be in Jamaica within the same time, because emancipation covers the entire Caribbean. So much as there was a lot of gaps whereby they were not, they didn't express a lot of conversation with the Africans and so on. There were those challenges, but at least it exposed the Africans outside Africa on how royalty Africa is, because a majority of young people only see the late Queen of England as a royal, but they don't know who's the queen in Africa. They only see the other one as a woman. Now,
I comprehend.
So in their move, they were able to identify. This is now spirituality in depth. They were able to identify the royal blood outside Africa, who are descendants from.
So what I want to do presently right now, as we're closing down in our time, because although it's 1 hour, 1 hour is still small, but that's the time window I have to use pertaining to the application. But I want to close down with is that I want to pose a question to the entire table here on this forum with Dr. Diane. I prefer you put on your speaker so you can hear me loudly. Put your speaker on. Right.
Can you hear me now?
There's a loud mic. Yes, I can hear you.
Because people are constantly knocking us out.
Ask him if he can hear you.
Yes, he said.
Okay. All right. So what happened? If I get Chief Sampson, I would prefer you to unmute your mic, because these are questions I want you to respond to you also too. What I get to you is that what I get to comprehend by all three of you is that according to you, Chief Sampson, the royals of Africa, the entire Africa, is trying to spread not only their love.
He's gone. He's gone. Stop.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to hear what he's saying because I won't be able to.
Oh, brother, yes, we are the ones that you came from us. We are your ancestors. We are your brothers and sisters. If I understand Dr. Diane and Queen Mother, is that we try to comprehend what went on in the Americas before 1823, right? And from Queen Mother, what went on in the Guyanas during the 1763 movement. But for me, on the other hand, Dr. Matthews-Bey, I got it also differently, like everyone else, but we trying to collaborate our knowledge and bring it under one umbrella so we comprehend the passage that we went under, right? So, I must say, I want to extend that same hand of fellowship to both of you, and I would like for you to either take a 2 minutes in responding back to what I've just said so we can fully comprehend it. We'll be seeing each other again. We can have this discussion very, very confidentiality, very, very confident in us, in us expressing ourselves. So go ahead, Chief Sampson. Let me give you a 2 minute in your response, whilst Dr. Diane and Sister and Queen Mother would come back up whilst you're waiting on them. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay.
Hello.
You are cut off just now, but let me try to answer.
I was trying to.
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, if you can repeat the question, please.
The question was, I comprehend what you were saying, and I understand, and I comprehend what the royals are trying to do. They're extending that hand of not only fellowship, but of brotherly love. So I would like for you to have that 2 minutes in that particular explanation as pertaining to that, because if I comprehend what you're saying, you're actually telling me and the platform of roughly 15,000 members is that we don't look at you as sons of slaves and daughters of slaves. You look at us as part of being a part of the family tree of the African community abroad and in Africa also. So go ahead.
Thank you so much, Doctor. In fact, that is a good one. In my response, I would like to say Africa loves you all in wherever you are. We love you. So African royalty, Africans have started a journey of getting everybody together. Let me give as an example of a broom, a pointy broom. A pointy broom can never be a broom when its points are separate. Those are different things altogether. But it is a broom when they are brought together. And now what brings them together is a thread that ties them together. And now in our part, as in Africans, what ties us together is our identity and culture. The culture stands strong. We find ourselves dotted in different parts of the world and not connected together simply because we have lost our culture. Now, the culture stands significant in ensuring that we are all together, and that is what the world fears. Once we come together, once we are bound with that thread of a culture, you will know that we are more stronger and we can always do what we want at any time we want.
Thank you very much, Chief. And I appreciate your response. And I love that part when you say we are strong as a point of broom. So to Queen Mother and Dr. Diane, Chief has just mentioned we are strong as a people, as a family, as a point of broom. You put the pointers together and you tie them. Without that tie, we cannot be a broom. And, I love that response. And yes. And I reach out to you now for your closing remarks. So the question, I have roughly 4 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
For inviting us. Also thank the other two persons who were there with me, that we're able to share and work together. And that's very important when they say Africans can work together. Here we are, 4 of us working together. And I hope we have many more occasions working together. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yes,
once again, I am very, very happy that we've had this discussion. I'm hoping that we will have many more, because we have to continue on the trend. I was so happy that Chief Isudu went back to show our journey up the Nile, and he set the platform and showed a lot of what has happened. There's only one thing I'd like to touch upon, and he's absolutely correct. As we go around, we have this myth that Africans sold Africans. I would like to refer persons to the late Dr. John Henry Clark, who did a lot of work on this, and he will show you, and he will always say, prove it to me, because no, we did not sell each other. We were captured. And we will be able to dialogue on this a little more, I hope. And the only way you can rule is by divide and conquer. And as Chief Isudu said, those are some of the tactics that were used in order to keep us apart. But I'm so happy that we can do this. And I also want to hail up the young folks who are now, or the young people, I should say, who are not so young, who are now on TikTok, doing a wonderful job, because even though we may not be so happy with some of the things, there are a lot of things that are on there that is awakening up the people to let them really understand their history. And with that, I say thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much to Queen Mother. Thank you very much to Dr. Diane and Chief Dr. Isudu Sampson. I want to thank you all for being a part of this roundtable today. It's been a pleasure inviting you on this program, and we will try to do this on a weekly basis where we touch on these topics pertaining to not our community, but our ancestors and the present generation of, I love to say Aboriginal persons, but some people say African, some people say Black, but it's okay. It's okay. On this show, we have our different process of edification, but we unite to make sure that the point is one in same of unity. So I want to thank you very much. This is Dr.
Exactly. May I jump in here and say, yes, may Queen Mother jump in here. May I say that?
The time, if I don't cut off, they won't allow me to.
All right, I was going to say to you, the same soft rice is rice pop. So no matter what you do, it's the same.
Okay. Stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask.